Arisha. Let's go through the answers together. But before that, let's go through the passage. Okay, Kiran, read through paragraphs 1 to 3, Hayden 4 to 6, Arisha 7 to 9.
Cook in the argument both sides the version men in yellow in the paperless construction side like an turn by let loose. When the nauseous feeling passed over him, Ming could not resist leaning forward again from where he spotted surveying the foreign world below him. Assigned to pave cement on the roof, Ming wondered if the ground 40 stories below him was as stubbornly hot as where he was up there. The ground surprised the heaviness of heat burning through his safety boots. At the thought of his body hurtling accidentally down the point of no return, cold sweat broke his skin. He retreated a little from the unfinished edge of the roof, the sun raining angrily down hard on his back. The dang that weight of unforgiving heat and humidity dogged him by surprise. There was little clarity to feel up there in my head. When baked with the heat, Wing suddenly thought about his hometown in Huibei, walking in the creeping cold days of winter in the air, when you could think so clearly so effortlessly, as if nature heard his thoughts. A slight warm breeze nudged the air, startling the beats of perspiration gathering earnestly on his temple.
So before he arrived in Singapore, there was hundreds of layers of wool marching across the snow-soaked ground of the battlefield, the real color of whiteness in the air blinding him, the harsh cold winter biting his heart. Where he was now perched on the roof, it was the other way around. Ming was already British, the white symbol of him surrendering like a white flag to the onslaught of the punishing heat. The heat rising out from the concrete was too much to take it all in. As his body leaked under the weight, before he lost consciousness, before his parched body hit the free flight to the ground, his mind set and the sun out of the people watch as he stopped guns. We bring us each story of the relationship got throughout they I already know that I think prospect usually like Singapore is a safe place for its village and helpful for those who don't have enough land, we had left the village for the people regions to visit the country. Like others before, we wanted to take me the moment for the source to be. He felt compelled to believe that others and remove himself and the 30-minute the also talking for the being trying to even prospect of the future that we had been out of which yes, I think the same time get the
That's the first class nervous something else but we keep yourself people pay attention when we wake up and we get there and someone will be something about so you feel and be a good job. It's very it's only more like you on the stage and it's people they will be staying on every fight we like to bring every night we it's I don't think the way we walk back my Singapore is a safe place. I think it's the last one of next job. Out by the city. Also, we make that medicine much of the violence I think that you build this that all the promises of the laws is
Okay. This is not an easy passage to understand. Any words or phrases that you guys are not familiar with? Forsaken. It was a forsakenly hot day. The word forsaken itself means to give up, sick. Huh? All right, forsake means to give up. Forsakenly hot day. Well, it means that it's so hot that you are really ready to give up, to surrender. And I think they use that word inside the passage as well. Forsakenly hot day. Any other words or phrases? Guys, do you know what happened to the character in the passage? You just realized. Okay, what do you realize? Yeah, I hope you realize he actually fell down. He actually committed suicide. That even though it was not very explicit. So that's, I would say, what is so difficult about this passage? Because in a way, it's so jump back and forth. So sometimes you're not exactly, it's not exactly in a linear, written in a linear fashion. Yeah, any other words? Excellent. Hopefully all of you know this word by now. This was in one of the list of 100 words. Yeah, Arisha? Oh, no. Kieran, what does affluence mean? Affluence. All right, all of you, you need to know it. It simply means rich. All right, the people in China are getting more affluence. They are getting richer. The other words, I mean, I won't go through every single word unless you think that you need to know the meaning. Okay, I think you better know this word too. This is in your list of 100 words. Compel. Arisha, do you remember this? Compel. It means, yeah, force. Force to leave as others have done. No. If you find any other words or phrases you're not familiar with, just let me know. Otherwise, I shall move on. Now, let's look at this. Let's start with the last question. Seems like the paragraphs are quite consistent in their length, except for paragraph 9. So for me, I would start with paragraph 9 because it's the shortest one. Taking in the last breath, it wasn't long, blah, blah. He hadn't seen much of the garden city, neither had he built the buildings that had come to build, nor the promises of the future that he had to keep. He had a future then. So in other words, it implies that he doesn't have a future now. So, which is the best description of paragraph 9? Unfulfilled life. Sorry? A big future. I don't think he has a future at all. If you look at the, yeah, I know it's very close between unfulfilled life and a big future. So neither had he built the buildings, nor keep the promises that was his to keep. So he didn't do quite a few things. He hasn't seen much of the garden city. So he has quite a few unfulfilled wishes. If you have read carefully, I know this is not that sting, but to be precise, unfulfilled life will be the best description because he had quite a few things undone. Oh, and by the way, you got to understand that he committed suicide, which is why his life was unfulfilled. Now, if you compare the rest, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 7, each paragraph is rather consistent in length. So I will leave 5 to 7 the last, since this will be 3 paragraphs. Let's just pick paragraphs 1 to 2. I believe most of you got it. 1 to 2. Morning sun, sit with unmet madness. Right, the sun raining angrily down hard on his neck. So paragraphs 1 and 2 are mostly about the sun and the heat. I think all of you got it. I can't remember. So obviously this is unbearable heat. Paragraphs 3 to 4. 3 to 4. Now, normally what I'll do is I'll just look through, especially the first and last sentences. Then they unforgiving heat and humidity, startling the beads of perspiration, gathering earnestly on his temple. But this is suddenly you have a change in scenery. Just before he arrived in Singapore, he blah, blah, blah. Right, he was back home, snow-swept ground. Where is he now? He's in Singapore. That time it was in winter in his home country. Now he was ready to ditch the white singlet on him, surrender it like a white flag to the onslaught of the punishing heat. Now, likewise, if you look carefully at 3, unfortunately, first and last sentence are not so strong, because if you look at the middle, suddenly thought about his hometown in Hubei. Right? Winter, right? He could think so clearly, so effortlessly. Some of you actually mentioned this destructive physical elements. But I would say a more consistent description of those 2 paragraphs, 3 and 4. Not everything is destructive if you think about it. Okay. Especially this part. He could think so clearly, so effortlessly. Right. I know this one is also not very distinct. But the right answer should be nostalgic musings, even though it's not that distinct. He was thinking about the past in his home country. 5 to 7. Okay, what is in 5 to 7? Okay, heat rising up again. He could not ignore the irony. The prospect of being truly alive when dead. Singapore is a safe place, yet he felt dehydrated of hope. As he took in the neat city landscape, he was exhausted at both the prospect of what he had left behind and what was to come before him. So it's kind of about the future, right? But he felt dehydrated of hope. He has more or less lost hope. He was exhausted, and that is connected to his loss of hope. And notice for paragraph 5 as well, the prospect of being truly alive when dead. So he considered himself dead. Okay, so therefore, a suitable description will be not just negative vibes. That's not good enough. It will be a bleak future. This is, I mean, I must admit, this is not easy. If you get 2 marks out of this, is pretty decent already. Let's look at the rest. Okay, I won't go through in order. This one I don't. Oh, hold on. I should pull Arisha's answer up. Okay, come, Arisha, did you get your answers right? Unbearably hit. Oh, full marks. Okay, that's good. Right, let's look at this one. He asked himself a series of questions. Why does he do so? 1 mark. He thought he was going to die and not experiencing his future. Oh no, he thought he was going to die. He was going to die. All right, but anyway, let's now look at the questions. What did he ask in his final moments? Look at paragraph 8. What was he asking? Do you identify those questions? Yeah, I know it's 1 mark, but if you want to get that 1 mark, you have to be really had to scrutinize this. What was he asking? He wondered where would his son be when he's all grown up? That was the first question. His son. Where is his son going to be? What other questions did he ask? Surely he will be happy, blissfully married. This is the second question. Is his son going to be blissfully married? All right, is he going to be happy? Is he going to have a meaningful job? That's the second question. Would he look more like him or his mother? That is the third question. All right. The rest of the sentence is actually filler, trying to mislead you. Unfounded worry when he broke the news to her on his plan to work in Singapore. That's not part of the question. That is just extra filler. Don't go, she bet. Any more questions? You realize that these are the 3 questions he asked. What is in common among these 3 questions? What is common among the 3 questions? All about the sun. All about the sun. So your answer must have something to do with the sun. I know this is not easy. What about the sun? Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. At least you can figure out that point. Why does he do so? All right. Now, of course, there are a few possibilities that you have to infer. This is not easier. It's an inference question. He probably misses his son. Even you may want to write down, unless you got it correct. He misses his son, but he is, I'll keep the same tense. I'll use present tense since that's what the question asked, but he's unable to find out his son's future since he will not be around. This is not easy actually. You really have to be very, I would say, careful to identify those few questions. Okay, let's go on. That is only for 1 mark. This one, I think all of you got it. Write down a phrase, or let's take a look at Arisha. Felt dehydrated or hope. I think all of you got it. Okay, so this one shouldn't be a difficult one. Let's look at this one. Why does the expression drank in a gleaming prospect suggest about Min's state of mind? He was daydreaming and thinking what could have been if he made a different decision. Is that so? Drank in the gleaming prospect. This is paragraph 6. Min drank in the dreaming prospect. Come, Arisha, at this point, when he was on his way from the airport to the workers' dormitory, was he already, hopeless? Does he feel hopeless? Oh. All right. So first thing, Singapore is a safe place, blah, blah, blah. We thought about others who had been to Singapore to work, but he felt compelled to leave as others had done. Why does he feel compelled to leave? We do not know, but probably you can infer that he needs money to actually feed his family. What else? Drank in the prospect. In the 30-minute journey from the airport to the workers' dormitory, he drank in the gleaming prospect of a future that would have been out of reach if he had stayed behind in his hometown. That means if he stayed behind, he will not have such a bright future. You need to know this gleaming. Gleaming means, Kaden? Shiny, bright. Right, so when he first came to Singapore, everything looked so shiny and bright. He felt that he had a good future in Singapore. And he wouldn't have this future if he stayed behind in his hometown. That is the meaning of this sentence. Okay, so anyway, probably you know the answer by now. Basically, I think it's a 1-mark question, right? He was hopeful about his future, or he was optimistic about his future. Okay, daydreaming is fine, but you don't miss the key point. He was hopeful about his future in Singapore. Or optimistic if you want. Okay, so anyway, obviously you won't get the mark. Okay, what else? 2 words that convey the idea of a better. Scrunching across. No, scrunching means just moving across. It doesn't mean anything. 2 words. Paragraph 4. Unfortunately, you need some general knowledge and your vocabulary must be adequate. Where is the white flag? Yeah. White flag. This can be an answer, but there's more than one answer. All right, of course, if you choose white flag, then you have used up both your 2 words. What's the other 2 possibilities? Onslaught. Okay, onslaught is in combat or in a war, it means an assault. Yeah, so you need one more word. Yes, good. The other word is surrendering. Oh, white flag. Oh, you haven't seen that description before. You haven't people like waving the white flag. No. Oh no, okay. You better note it down somewhere. It means surrendering. Okay, in the old days, when one army wants to surrender, somebody will raise and wave the white flag. That is a sign of surrendering. Kiran, okay. So you can either use white flag or you need 2 words, surrendering plus onslaught. Now let's go on. So yeah, Arisha, you won't get those 2 marks. Is it 1 mark, 2 marks? Okay, 1 mark. Scrunching across simply means just moving across the ground noisily. Doesn't mean much. This one is tough. How did the different weather conditions affect Ming? 2 marks. So to get these 2 marks, guys, you have to talk about Singapore versus China. Right, so what did you think? Whether in Singapore was so hot that it made mean value and what's that? Creaminess. Oh, it does now. Okay, come. Creaminess. For 2 marks, you can't just write like that. You had to be a lot more precise. In Singapore, what happened? I mean, how was he like in Singapore and how was he like in China? This not easier, this 2 marks to get this 2 marks. So if you look at paragraph 3, what is the main difference? Where is China? China is here, Hubei. Of course, you got to realize that this is in China. They don't use the word China, but hometown in Hubei refers to China. What was happening? He was creeping cold. All right, so what's the difference? It was cold. It was winter, but he could think clearly and effortlessly. Contrast that with Singapore. In Singapore, the heat was unforgiving. I can talk about humidity if you want, all right? There was little clarity when he was baked in the heat. That is the difference between these two places. It's not easy to identify, but you really have to read carefully. So in other words, to put it into words, in Singapore, I suggest that you make it very clear what happened in Singapore, what happened in Hubei. All right, so in Singapore, the heat, you can add in the unforgiving if you want, or the extreme heat, but since you do not need to use your own words, the unforgiving heat prevented him from thinking clearly. That is the gist of that particular paragraph. Whereas, here, let's put a contrasting word here. However, in China, the extreme cold, if you want to add in the adjective of winter, made him think clearly and effortlessly. So you really got to break down the sentences in the respective paragraph. So yeah, Arisha, you won't get those 2 marks. Okay, and let's move on. Yes, I did. Let's go on to this one first. This one is difficult. Most of you didn't get it. Dogged. Not exactly human. Paragraph 3. Just one word. One word. It's not obvious, unfortunately. The sun. Think about the sun. Some of you, I think, maybe not in this class, but they use the word nudge. No, the nudge doesn't apply to the sun. It applies to the breeze. So not nudge. Some of you, I think one of you used this earnestly. What does it apply to? It applies to the beads of perspiration, not exactly the sun either. What is about the sun that makes it human? Sorry, which one? Oh, hurt. No, good try. Okay, I think that was what Caden put. Hurt is applicable only to nature, not exactly the sun. This is very difficult because they didn't use the sun at all. The word sun doesn't appear at all here. Look at sentence one. Oh, dang. Dang means smelly. So it doesn't really, it's not exactly a human quality. Anything else can be smelly. It's this one. This is super difficult. Unforgiving. Yeah, of course. Only humans can forgive. Unforgiving. Right. Sorry, Arisha, you will get that one wrong. Okay, Kieran, write it down. Unforgiving. What else? Unusual and effective. Actually, I hope most of you got it, but I don't think so. Unusual and effective. Come, guys. You see this all the time. Okay, let's start with unusual first. What do you look for when you see the words? The word unusual. Usually there's a contrast, or perhaps something impossible, an impossibility. The sun raining angrily is unusual because the heat was too hot, but it proceeded to what? Intensify. That is not answering to the point because when the sun is up or the sun is present, usually there is no rain. Not say impossible, but it's unusual. So the contrast is between the sun versus the rain. It is effective. Yeah, because it emphasizes something. Normally, it emphasizes something. The sun raining angrily because the sun is it is effective. Let me see. Because the sun is giving out heat continuously. And heating the or heating Ming. Let's use his name. Heating. Let's just use a more effective word, striking. Striking Ming. If you want, add in an adjective relentlessly. Like drops of rain. That is the answer you want, something to relate between the sun and rain. But it's not easy to infer, I mean, I must admit. Okay, you have to relate, even though they are unusual, sun and rain don't come together, but you in your answer, you have to relate them. Okay, what else? 7 is difficult. Does everyone know the meaning of hurtling? It's not hurting, it's hurtling. Do you all know the meaning? If you don't, I think there's no way you can answer this. hurtling. So hurtling means moving at high speed. Okay, let's answer to the point. Falling, in this case, in this context, is falling at high speed. And normally, if you use the word hurtling, it means from a great height. If you jump off the table, that's not counted as hurtling. Yes, that one, yeah, it's subjective, but well, I would say yes. Especially if you are like, I don't know, 10 stories high. Yeah. This one is difficult unless you know the word hurtling already. Which one? Oh, world. No, not world. The place is enormous. Countless paragraph one. Where's the world anyway? The foreign world below him. Not exactly. This is just a general word. Cavernous. It's like a big cave. Cavernous. I think both of you got it. Both of you boys got it. All right. So you got to understand the word cavernous. Are you sure? I assume you don't know the word cavernous before this. Right? It's like a big cavern. It's a big cave, essentially. Okay. Let's just look at this. 3 details on the paragraph. The sun was burning his eyes. Yes, good. Arisha, I strongly suggest you eliminate the redundant words because some markers are very, I would say, strict. They want you to be precise. Was burning his eyes. Right? This, of course, put quotation marks, shows that the sun was so bright. But be a bit careful here. It's about the heat, not about the brightness. Right? The sun was so hot that his eyes could not handle it, even when facing downwards. He's facing downwards. Oh yeah, I know. But the sun was burning his eyes. I think you can probably visualize what is happening. Right? The sun was so hot that his eyes were burned. If you want to put it very direct. I agree, but I don't think our teacher should agree. You look at the way that your teacher marks, he's so strict, he wants you to be precise in every single thing. If you write something extra, it's going to penalize you. Shows that the sun was so hot that his eyes were could not handle. His eyes were seared or worse. Could not handle it. You have to be a bit more precise, Arisha.
That his eyes in pain.
Yeah. Not bad. Okay, so this is fine. You managed to identify the right phrase, but you've got to describe it in order to answer the question directly. This is fine too. The morning sun sit with unmet madness in the sky. The sun filled the sky with its own heat intensely. Okay. Actually, do you understand the word sit? It means boil. Boiling.
Oh,
Foaming. I think one of you used the word foaming. That's fine. Okay. Boiling. So unfortunately, To answer comprehension well, you got to have a robust vocabulary. Right, so the sun filled the sky with orange intensely. The sun felt like boiling. In an uncontrolled manner, because you actually use the words unmet madness or uncontrollably. You managed to identify the one, could not resist. No, that's not it.
The forcibly thoughtful.
Yes,
But if I knew what forsaken knew what's local.
yes, probably that is the problem with comprehension. Is tied very closely to vocabulary. So are we sure the last one is wrong? It's not correct. Or secondly, let me see. What's the exact phrase? Or secondly, hot day. For all of you, make sure you put in quotation marks to identify the right phrase. For secondly, hot day indicates that it was let's not use the word hot, indicates that the heat was extremely unbearable. I suggest so, because they have an adjective here for mistakenly. A simple synonym, I want to say synonym in this context for secondly means extremely, okay, sorry, unbearable. Right, I think there's one last one. Let's hang on a moment, Kevin. Let's finish all this last one. Oh, this one is difficult as well. Explain the irony. What is irony? Come, Arisha, irony. Oh, you don't. Oh, you got no. Irony. Okay, then what's irony? Uh, okay, that means something appears to be so, but in reality it's not so. In your answer, you have to elaborate on the irony, but it's not easy. But if you are not sure, just look at that sentence given there. What is it saying? Build the buildings as he built a life for himself and his family, while I'm building his very presence back home. What's the contrast there? Or how do you want to elaborate on that? He left his hometown or home country to what? Okay.
To support his family.
Yes. Okay. He left his family on
Circle the life. And the life cycle.
he sacrificed his life. I mean, at that point, not yet. He didn't sacrifice his life. Anyway, sacrifice is not the right word to use. What did he sacrifice when he comes over? Okay, yeah, they'll be more precise. His time with his family. He left his family in China to come to Singapore to earn money. I hope you all know that he comes here to earn money to support his family. But these 2 marks, so I need to say at least 2 sentences. However, in the process, he was straining, I won't say breaking, but straining his relationship with his family still in China. Okay, so he's trying to do something for his family, but yet in the process, he's straining his relationship with them. Yeah, this is one of those difficult passages. Okay, any questions? All right, if not, then this will be the end for today.